I kind of like the idea of best and worst class and spec trees. Like, but you wouldn't rate all of them. You would make like a top 5 best talent trees and talk about each one of them a little bit more in depth. The problem is it's a little subjective. And it'd be really hard to actually get the right people to talk about that without it being super long. I guess I could make a tier list of them. That would be a super long stream, though. That would be a super long stream. Like a 5-hour content thing of like... Because that would be one of those things where I would definitely want to call and talk to someone of that class and like have them explain why they think what they do. But that's a really long stream. Also, people get so mad at those. Because, like, a lot of people won't even understand it. Like, for example, a class can have, like, a ton of really good choices and ideas, very little nodes that feel bad, but you'll get the opinion of someone who only plays this game at a high level. And even though there's a bunch of cool choices, different play styles, the class is more fun than it's ever been. But it'll be like, well, we're not meta because we have to choose too many of these talents that are good. And we don't get to just select one talent build forever and we're the best at everything. And then they're going to say C tier. And then that's like totally missing the point. But it's also true. Like that is bad talent design. Like if you have cool talents and you play differently in certain scenarios by selecting different things, and that's interesting, but you feel bad because you don't do enough damage in Mythic Plus or something because you have to change too many talents to do that thing, that is a problem, just not with your tree. It is a problem of the trees that do everything all at once. Truly. Like, that's... Like, the class I'm fucking playing right now. Right? Like, if I wanted to do Raid right now... Like, in Tyrannical Weeks, this is what I play. Right here on the right. The literal only change from single target to AoE is Ragefire for Serrated Glaive. And if you want to go Giga AoE instead, you would go Ragefire plus... Okay, but like, this is what I would do. This is Giga AoE right here. This is Giga. I changed 2 things. My rotation is largely the same for both, and I do great single target in AoE. There's a lot of good things about the Havoc tree, but it is a problem that exists because it makes 90% of the specs in this game who have to do more than that, and that decision to do more than that is more interesting. Is this interesting, by the way? To go from single target to AoE, exact same playstyle, you just change a few buttons. Is that interesting? Absolutely not. The class is really fun to play at a base level, but as a talent tree, it fails in that way, right? So, and other talent trees are good at that, but they feel punished because it's so OP to have this, you know? So, like, I don't know. I think a lot of that matters. No one cares if it's interesting just as long as it cares. I don't think that's true. So, like, at a high level, people that you play with, the majority of your chat, you'll absolutely get that opinion. There are classes in this game that change a few talents, and it's like very different, very fun, and very good at different things, and that is sick. The only thing that feels bad about that is that you lose power compared to people who don't have to make that choice. There is a world where it works for sure. But the people who, again, streamers, high-end players, you're almost always going to have that opinion because performance matters more than anything else, and we saw even in Shadowlands with like Covenant selection stuff that trickles down, but I think it's much more important than you're making it out to be. Like, the world where... Okay, so, like, if I want to do a little bit more AoE in a dungeon, and I don't know if it's, like, the issue with talent trees is that it's just, like, a hella... Like, capstones are so powerful, and usually the choices you're making at the end of your tree involve the capstones. So maybe it's that. But, like, for example, I wish I could select 4 talent points in different spots, right? So I'm just going to randomly select them, right? So I'm going to swap out this, going to swap out that, and then I want to play... you know, this, and then go down the, like, Shattered Destiny route or something like that. That is a massive game-changing different thing, and you're talking, like, minus 40%, I'm just gonna make up numbers, minus 40% single target, plus a bunch of AoE or whatever, right? I wish you could make small changes like that, and it's like 4 talent points increases your AoE by 10% and reduces your single target by 5. But you have a lot more AoE tools, you know? So, like, the balance between having your talent choices feel impactful versus feeling like it's, like, the end-all, be-all, there's no way to balance. Like, there's no way to balance at its current level with how powerful some talents are. It is impossible to balance how powerful a talent point is on average across all 38 specs. it's impossible because, but like if you reduced the overall power of them and built more of it base and they were more like selections based on a thing, you would change them a lot more. It'd be less defining and could be just as fun. I don't know. But it'd be like the old talent tree. The old talent tree was actually much closer to this than you'd think. The old talent tree was like, a lot of this stuff was just baked in, and then you ended up making the same choices. They were just between a row on each other. Like basically the current talent tree, in a way, is like the old mop one. Let me actually pull up that talent tree so you can see a picture of it. Here. How would I look at this mop talent tree? If I just type mop talent trees, will just show up. All right, so these are like what they used to look like, right? With this, the thing is, what the current talent trees are, and what they're trying to be more than this, but instead of them just making you choose between amplification, rule of threes, and arcane familiar, you're choosing between amplification and all of these. Basically, if you just remove the numbers on the left and you could just select a certain amount of all of these things, I would say the current talent tree is much closer to that, or what I'm suggesting would be much closer to that than the mop one. Even, I mean, actually, not even what I'm suggesting. I think that is what current talent trees actually are, with some cool stuff. The other thing that talent trees don't get enough credit for is it did allow them to like kind of take a big step back and just add a bunch of stuff in that they wouldn't have otherwise. Like, for example, would the hunt after Shadowlands, if they didn't remake these talent trees, would that have made its way onto a list like this? No, like definitely not. One thing that this really does, and like in true evergreen nature, is like over time with good tier sets and stuff like that, you're going to see those reappear in cool and interesting ways where they never would have with something like this. Because there's just simply more things to do. You know, over time, what's going to happen probably is a lot of this stuff in here that's just baked in. And a lot of people misunderstand the baked in part too. Like, some people will say stuff like this, right? This is a common misunderstanding. Oh, well, like, we've had I-beam before. Why do I need to spend a talent point on it now? Because of the leveling system. This is a way to like try to get new players into the game. They don't want you to have all this stuff when you first start playing this game at level 10. They want you to get I-beam and then get this and then get deflecting dance and then get nether walk. And it's like every time you level, you get something powerful. It's actually, or not powerful, but like important. That's kind of like what the old talent tree is really, really good at. So a lot of the beginning of these trees from high-end players who haven't leveled in a long time, like I don't remember the last time I leveled from one. Like seriously, it's probably been 10 years. I don't really think about this, but a lot of people are just like, why do we have to relearn stuff we already have? Because they're just totally missing how the leveling process works for like a newer player or someone new to a class. It's good at that. But what you'll see over time is a lot of that stuff will be baked in, and they will just replace those baked in things with cool things they've come up with in the meantime. Current talent trees are like a best hits album of the last 3 or 4 expansions. Yeah. And it really goes to show you who has had a lot of cool stuff in the last couple expansions versus who has been like really stagnated for a really long time. And a lot of those classes, like rogues, for example, really felt that way until they got reworked recently. Like you could really feel that. Like rogues have just been the same class forever. Isn't it weird that some tier sets require you to take a talent? So no. So tier sets have always done this. This is not a talent tree problem. This has been, in like ever since tier sets have been a thing, one thing they often do is, not often, but like somewhat often, is they'll choose a talent and they'll want to revolve the tier set around that talent. And I don't think that's super controversial. It's really simple. If the talent they're choosing you to work around, if that bonus is good, number one, that's important. And then two, if that button is fun, right? And both of those kind of need to both exist for everyone to be happy. Like, for example, if the tier set happens to be good for a Destro lock, but it surrounds itself around taking channel Demon Fire, then it's bad because no one wants to press that button, right? It's really simple. For example, the current Havoc tier set bonus involves taking all the Throw Glaive talents, which are like really value and good, and it also centers itself around a cooldown reduction on Throw Glaive or on the Hunt, right? Well, the Hunt is incredible, so this tier set is great. If that tier set revolved around some boring ass bad shit, it would be bad. Like, so saying that like, oh, it's bad that tier sets force you into an ability, that's only true if they force you into abilities that are not fun, and that's on Blizzard to know that. And maybe even in the worst case scenario, you know how I said, like, I wish they would try some things in Season 4, even if they end up being bad, just so they can experiment and learn? I think that's true with tier sets too. Like, hey, if you're a Blizzard developer, right? You're a class designer, and you make a tier set, and you have this great idea, and it's around this ability, and everything makes sense to you, but then you release it, and the entire community is like, oh my god, this tier set's going to make us play this talent or ability, which happens like a decent amount. What that should tell to that developer is, hey, this ability sucks. What about this ability sucks? Ask community. Community tells you, right? You either scrap it because it's irredeemable, or you try something else, right? You either change the tier set or you use the tier set to inform your decision to remove or change an ability that is bad, right? He should know beforehand and if an ability sucks. I mean, they only have a few class designers. They all work on every single spec. Like, as much as it would be nice for Blizzard to have a bunch of like 30 class designers and they all work on like individual specs and it's their job to know every single ins and outs of everything. The reality is a lot of them work on a lot of things and they're not going to know exactly what is like. There's some that are egregious though. Like what is it? Like Affliction Warlocks. Like there is not an Affliction Warlock on Earth that is a fan of Siphon Life. It has been the worst ability forever. And they super hate stuff like that. But then there's been a lot of situations that don't, it's like reviews on a apartment complex, right? If you've ever been to an apartment complex and you've signed your leasing agreement and you're like, maybe I'm going to look them up on Google real quick. 2 stars. Why? Because everyone who leaves a review is someone who had some kind of dispute with them, got evicted, or had a problem. No one like rents from a place, leaves, and then is like, they were a great landlord. That just doesn't happen, right? There's been a million things that have been bad about classes that they've removed, right? But no one remembers that. That's just a given. It's a... Not to say that they don't mess up all the time. They do, and probably even more than I'm aware of. But there's a lot of things I could name about classes. Dude, Feral Druids had Savage Roar for like a million years. Rets had Inquisition. There was a ton of bad things about classes that people were like, hey, this sucks, and they removed them, right? Dude, even in this like patch and beta cycle, like they had fucking, what is this? They had Spectral Sight spawn the old Necrolord ability to spawn a demon for you to kill. And like everyone hated it for a week and then it was gone. But like 2 years from now, no one's going to remember when they listened to people saying things sucked and they changed it. They're going to remember the one thing that stayed that they hated because that's just how people work, right? Max, do you think these class devs live in a bubble? I would assume they watch videos as everyone else. So I can't say exactly what WoW devs do with their time, like on their own, but I can tell you what community managers do for them. And I can tell you that when I was doing like I haven't done these in a while, but when I was doing those class talks at the beginning of this expansion or in beta for this expansion, those devs were in here 100% of the time. They were not messaging me privately. They were in the chat, like responding to things, like a lot of them, right? So do they intake information from community discussions? Yes. And I can also tell you what community managers do. So community managers, you know, people like Kyvax, really common name you guys see on the forums, a bunch of other ones. But Kyvax is who I've talked to a lot. Great guy. And what he does, and part of his job is being on top of everything. Like, you know, whatever a streamer is doing or saying, and this is their job. Like, if there's like an interesting like forum post, if there's something on Twitter, if there's a YouTube video, they compile all that information daily and they send them to the people that they are relevant to. If there's someone who makes a DK talent talk video or something, that is getting sent directly to the desk of the person who works on Death Knights all the time, right? They are absolute beasts, and that stuff does get sent to them. Hopefully that answered your question to some in some way. Imagine your job is trying to read Wowhead comments. Yeah, dude, Jesus Christ. It has to take a special kind of dude, imagine that. Imagine it is your job to sift through a Wowhead section to bring anything credible to someone who can make a difference. Holy fuck. It takes a special kind of person. Usually, I think like a lot of people don't really know what devs do or what goes into doing any of that. And it's more just a lot of people have toxic relationships with developers who play their class or who are working on their class, and they really focus on a lot of the negative stuff because that's just the only relationship they have with them or the game. That's the thing that I see the most. You like bring up anything. Oh, what about that one time they did this one thing? You know, the one thing that I am a fan of, and I can kind of see the business perspective of why Blizzard doesn't do this, but I still don't like it, is I think that Blizzard is clearly, and Blizzard didn't have Microsoft did layoffs, but as far as I can tell, the Warcraft dev team was either completely or almost completely untouched. I wish they would hire more people, and it's because there's a clear lack in some areas. I'll give you an example right now. When new expansions are coming out, the amount of content we got in 10.0.5 and 0.0.7, and the amount of content we've got in the 0.5 and 0.7 patches for 10.0 and 10.1 is vastly different than 10.2. And the reason for that is because the expansion is coming out. So, like, I feel like there is a need for more people. Like, tuning right now, low-key, kind of fucking insane. Like, people will always complain about tuning because it'll never be perfect because this game is not super homogenized. But I'm talking purely damage. This game is insanely well tuned right now. Like, single target and raid is fucking cracked. And even in Mythic Plus, like, a lot of the super, super high groups are like, you have no idea how picky the top meta is in this game right now. Not only do you need a class that's going to top overall, you need a class with, like, historically insane defensives and great group buffs and great utility, right? And could those areas be balanced in the game? 100p, right? I think PvP kind of hurts that a lot. We can talk about that a bit, but wait, he's going to start crying in Boonkin. Yeah, but like seriously, like right now, there are, if you're talking purely damage, which let's keep it a buck, that is what almost everyone cares about the most. Damage, throughput, whatever. Your throughput as a DPS right now, there are like 10 plus classes that would top overall in any given 25 to 29 key. Maybe more, maybe 15. Like there's a fucking ton that are going to be able to do top damage. I don't think it's ever been like that. The issue is at infinite scaling difficulty modes, which again is something I hope they cook in season 4 because that's impossible to tune for because it's always going to go to the most extremes. Because like, yeah, okay, you have 10 to 15 classes that can do top overall right now. When you get to a 31, only 3 of 4 or 5 of those classes can even possibly live, right? That's a problem in the game, but it's a lot more of a problem with infinite scaling, right? Because that's not true in raid. When you have reasonable things, like you're talking about, like when you're talking about living a lot of things, you're talking about living reasonable damage. When you start getting into certain tyrannical and fortified key scaling, it is literally unreasonable. Like you can only bring classes that can live unreasonable damage, so there's always going to be such an insane bottleneck at what classes can get in at a certain point. But so like right now tuning is good, but I went off on a little bit of a tangent. So tuning is actually really, really good right now. I'm trying to think of the last time tuning was this good. I mean, 10.1 before AUG came out, so not 10.1.5, but 10.1, I think might have had more relevant tanks. There was like 3 tanks instead of 2, but like DPS feels exactly the same. Season 4 Mythic Plus had like a bunch of classes, even though Survival and Destro kind of dominated. Like you could play like you know, like 6 or 7, but it was nothing close to 10.1. So like everything there tuning-wise is good. I just feel like it's the content. Like, I don't know, I felt like a big goal of Dragonflight this expansion was you're not only going to get stuff at the start of the patch, you're going to get stuff middle and near the end of a patch. And they actually delivered on that, right? 10.1.5, 0.7, 10.0.5, and 0.7. But then 10.2.5 and there's nothing. There's no content. It's insanely less content than we got earlier in the expansion, which makes me think that for them to deliver on their promise for a whole expansion without having a noticeable drop-off when the next expansion is coming out, they just need more people. And WoW's like really popular right now, so why not do it? I mean, I don't understand business case. Here's the other reason why maybe you don't do that. Here's why. Maybe if this wasn't true. Oh, this is so funny that this is the last paint I had. Just fucking point. I sent this to Shroud because he wanted to play Companion Druid again, and it was in D tier, and there wasn't even an article about it. Fucking idiot. All right. Here's how many people play the expansion. Those are like the 2 patches. This looks pretty stupid, but you get the point, and it's a way bigger swing than that. Actually, you know what? Let's. That's a normal expansion. Now in Dragonflight, there was a way bigger lump for season 3 because like it was right after BlizzCon and shit, and it was just a better patch. But yeah, that's what it normally looks like. So what I'm saying is, Blizzard, what I want you to do is hire more people so you can make more content during this time. And I can definitely see why they're using a lot of their workforce to prepare for this time. You know what I mean? So maybe I'm wrong. Max, worth noting that tanks are separated solely due to utility and not their effective health or DPS. Yeah, that's probably more true now than ever, right? Like what a prop paladin can do for your group is so insane. And what a on bosses and what a vengeance DH can do for you on trash is just like unreasonably crazy. Yeah, like what would the tank balance look like right now if every tank had access to the sigils that vengeance DH would? You know what I mean? Like how hard does that specifically carry? It's pretty insane. You'd probably see a lot of other stuff. Blood DK and Brewmasters are paper in keys. It's just not about utility. Yeah, kinda. I hear that a lot, but then I also bet if you put like 2 of the best tanks on the world and whatever tank you say is paper, I bet if in 2 weeks they're just at the top of Raider IO just like they would be on whatever other guy. At least if the utility was the same like we were suggesting.